As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm K.C.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
What's happening, all my woods people? Today we're sitting on the Nebraska Furniture Mart couch again.
I thought I'd never see this couch again, man.
It's awesome.
Golly.
It's awesome. Listen, KC has a tune for you that he's been wanting to sing lately, but he wanted me to sing it.
Okay.
It goes, "It's the most wonderful time of the year." This is
the most wonderful time to hunt deer.
There'll be lots of snowing.
Golly, there was.
KC and our one of our camera guys, his name's Camera, actually, just come back from a hunting trip where they got snowed on a bunch, and they were really wanting it to be the most wonderful time of the year, but it wasn't the most wonderful time of the year, because now, as you are listening, is the most wonderful time of the year. In my opinion, KC, was my opinion, and people don't like my opinion all that often. Mm-hmm. I think the second week of November I would prefer over the first week.
Tyler?
In most of my hunting experience, which is southern based.
Yeah.
If you know this, you know that I love the trace system from First Light, right? I prefer the trace when it's snowing outside in South Dakota.
Brought to you by First Light Gear. Don't wear trace this time of year; you'll freeze yourself. Yeah, Tyler, I know podcasts are about discourse, and you know we're supposed to be Stephen A. and
Stephen
Skip
B.
right now, but Skip and Hip. But I would agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've only shot one deer in the first week of November, and it's all being later than that. Any of my bucks that I can remember the dates on, at least, that was last year. But you know, dude, the 8th through the 14th, give it to me all day, for sure.
Yeah, I think the 2012 was the first year I shot a deer, like before. Or the first year I shot a big buck, at least in a long time before. Like, I shot a deer November 7th or something that year, I think. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that was the earliest deer I'd shot in, like, years and years and years. Mm-hmm. So, since then, I've been able to travel more and more and, you know, go to other states and hunt up north where it's cold, and I use the trace system often. In case you're wondering, I'm gonna make sure that you know. But anyway, that's been since then. It's changed, but I just remember that shooting that deer and be like, man, that was early, you know, because I'm usually in football. With football, I wasn't able to hunt early, so and it was still good, and there was deer running everywhere, you know. Mm-hmm. If you know, back then I was hunting Kansas and Texas mostly, and some Oklahoma stuff, and Kansas. They were broken off about late November most years, too. So that was kind of something we battled a little bit of.
It's kind of weird, but I think that there is that little lockdown lull type thing that happens, you know, if you get out of the central Midwest. But it's kind of a little bit more drug out, because I'm thinking about a couple years back, I hunted quite a bit in like very late November and early December, and it was tough. Like when Eric and I went on a road trip, like we did not see a lot of buck action at all, you know, and I don't know what that is, if it's the same thing or if it's just like everybody's in recovery mode or we didn't have the right properties or what. But I wouldn't say like, oh man, you know, November 28th is the best day in the month of November. You know, I wouldn't do that. But I do think that, and it probably depends a lot on the property too. Like, I know some of the stuff that you hunted, and like if you got good food, it makes all the difference in the world, public or private.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah.
If you're on public and they're all eating on a wheat field that's 2 miles over there on private, you're not going to see a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's good to kind of scout that stuff out and be ready.
And it's been hard for me because I've been doing a lot of sitting at home watching and living vicariously through you. And then
Glad I can oblige.
watching a bunch of other fellers out there shooting deer on that cold front that came through in late October. And here's the thing about that cold front. It wasn't perfectly timed. We talked about this already on.
Did we talk about it on the
Rut Fresh.
podcast?
I think it was Rut Fresh.
Okay.
It was perfectly timed, but it wasn't the most perfect cold front you could ask for. I don't think, not in my opinion. Right? It was a great. Like normally, you start seeing deer show up in a lot of areas on that Halloween type of moment, you know. But like really, things get raging about a week later or so, usually, in my opinion. And so it was perfectly timed for deer to start really getting into that cruising mood, and then also have the cold weather. And this is another thing I want to talk about. That's also
we're punching hands around here.
This is I know there's science, right, that may say otherwise. But, dude, I don't know. It is going to be hard to convince me at this moment in my life that weather does not affect how the deer move. I mean,
it's impossible.
And I'm pretty sure there's studies that would say that, the rut's the same either way. They move the same amount of distance in a day and this and that and this. I'm telling you, I'm going to be hunting when it's cold. And we're watching a heat pattern come through right now on all of our cameras across the U.S. It's been slow.
It's bad. So. And here's the thing, man. I was talking to Jake Hofer about this, who's on Rut Fresh this week, by the way. Jake Hofer and I had a long discussion about this stuff. A couple deals. I think you and I both kind of are there a little bit to where last year, like, not only perceived movement, but actual rut was a little later. And I think we're looking at this potentially being the same thing this year. But also that weather absolutely makes a difference in it. And you can either find an excuse not to hunt or you can find a reason to hunt. And it's a reason to hunt for sure. I mean,
guarantee you.
If you have a hot day on November 6th or a cold day on November 7th, which day are you going to take off?
I'm telling you.
The 7th.
The 7th for sure.
The 7th for sure. I'm taking off work.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. Like, I don't care what some guy
but if you can hunt
from
them
the
both,
East Coast made a
both.
chart about. Yeah, exactly. Just hunt, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's where, you know, I made an excuse not to hunt recently because I was like, the cameras are terrible. I don't want to go up there early. I was going to go ahead of you to the place that we were going to hunt together. And because you had just gotten back, I had been having the FOMO bad. And I was going to head up there. And I was like, you know what, man? I sat around for an hour and a half looking for a tag that was a E-tag.
I texted you about that later, and you never answered me, so I figured you were mad enough.
I was probably asleep because I was so daggum tired. I had to work Good Samaritans that morning. I had a playoff football game that afternoon, and then did, you know, the just absolute rip apart of my entire house trying to find a tag that's an E-tag. So I was like, okay, I'm tired, but we can still make it work. And then I sat down finally. And I was looking at the cameras. I'm like, there hadn't been a deer in daylight, a buck in daylight, like in 3 days. So I was like, looking at the weather. I'm like, man, heat wave. I'm just going to wait a couple of days and go with you. Well, what happens? Literally the afternoon that I would have been hunting Mondo in the daylight. Yeah. And it's because it's November 5th or whatever at that time, right?
Yep.
Like
it's pushing in the dates.
It's just getting to the right dates, and that's why this is the most wonderful time of the year. It's because it's becoming day to day here more and more just ramped up, and you're just going to see deer that are actually not just cruising and reaching into new territories, but also like legit running does, and that's what's fun.
I love seeing that stuff, man. I haven't got to see it. Last year, I didn't see it once. I don't believe. Because...
In Buck Truck, the night before you killed, we saw deer running does from way off.
Okay. Yeah, but like from the stand, I didn't get to see the rage. I haven't seen a lot of that in my life, actually. It's just like, I don't know if it's like something about the way I hunt or whatever, but... last year, I killed a lot of bucks by themselves. You know, I don't think that most people kill deer when they're by themselves, it seems. But, you know, that I would like to see just the thing go down some more. It's pretty cool to watch, and we're kind of setting ourselves up actually for a little bit more of that action this year.
I hope so.
It's for this little later entry.
It's been hard, dude, sitting here just watching everybody. Because, like I said, the cold front was good, man. It was at a good time of year, but it wasn't the best time of year. And there's fixing to be one, I think, that's going to affect a lot of the
It's
U.S.
not as drastic of a cold front, but I'm hoping it's good enough.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I don't know. I think that it is pretty good. It's just over the course. It looks like on the weather that it's over the course of 2 days, right?
Yeah, it
I guess it
warms
depends
up
on where you're at. But
it kind of warms up pretty good, like 3 or 4 days later.
because it's okay, yeah. So just not as long.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's not
So
as
it's almost
as
a
stout
30-degree drop.
over the course of 48 hours or something.
Well, yeah, whatever it ends up being. I mean, it's over the course of 2 days on the weather, but I think that's because it comes in midday.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm willing to hunt that if you are.
me too, man. Me
Well,
too.
you may have heard a while ago, but the lovely and guttural chuckle of Eric Gentry is also over here. Eric is going to help us continue our rut Q&A because we got about...
You talking about monochrome, Eric?
Yeah.
Monochrome?
Monochrome.
Yeah. Mr. Green Man. Hey, what color are your socks?
They need to be
black.
green.
Okay.
Well, okay, duochrome.
Well,
He's got
no,
black
actually
and
black
green
isn't
on.
the color, so it's still monochrome.
There you go.
Yeah, he's got a...
I thought you said white wasn't a color.
White is a combination of all colors. Black is the absence of color. So he's got a what's that color called? An olive cruiser hat on.
OD
a
green.
Olive element shirt and olive First Light pants. Mm-hmm. And some black and one socks.
Yep.
Olive undies too. He said.
Yeah. Do you?
No, it's more.
Oh, that's yellow for
right.
sure.
That's pretty close, man. That's like cute green, man.
So Eric's going to read us some more rut Q&A questions. We're going to be talking a lot more about some whitetail deer hunting throughout the month of November. Y'all sent us a ton of questions, and it's actually been really healthy for me to go over this stuff because sometimes I need to just evaluate where I stand on a few things. You know what I mean? And it actually helps to put some thought into this stuff. So, Eric, shall we?
Yep. First question. In your opinion, how far does the average buck travel per day during the rut?
Oh, speaking of science,
Yeah.
there's probably been some research on this. I'm
I
sure.
think that's going to be hard to answer because where you're at in the country matters a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to answer it from an East Texas perspective. I think that the average buck in East Texas travels a square mile in a day pretty commonly, but that's not a lot of ground, you know. And that ain't like corner to corner either, you know. Like he's probably running 1,000 yards south. Or vice versa. And it depends on what the habitat and all that kind of stuff. I'm just thinking about the deer like on my property, pretty much. That's kind of my best guess.
Talking about bucks.
Yeah.
So I'll give a little different answer then. And we were hunting a couple of different places in Kansas a long time ago. And there was a rifle hunter in camp that shot a young 10-point. That was very particular. I think he had like 3 tines that had the acorn thing on the top, you know, where it kind of like mess up right at the tip of their antler, and so it grows while it's in velvet, and it grows like an acorn-looking cap on the tip of his antlers. He had like 3 of those, so it was pretty undeniable which buck he was on trail camera. Where he killed this deer a month earlier on a different property, I had a trail camera picture of this deer. And I believe the straight line distance was like 7.3 miles. Straight line. And there's not really a straight line to be walked in there, right? So, you know, it is very circumstantial. I mean, I've seen deer like one-eyed jack relocate their entire home range over the course of their life and even over the course of a year, like during the rut. So it is hard to say because like one day, you know, one-eyed jack in early November is in an area that he's kind of lived in his whole life, or at least that whole year, and then ends up he's 1.5 miles away in a different drainage, like for most of the end of November / part of early December, you know, and so it really does depend. But I think the average deer, like it depends also on the landscape. So like in East Texas, it's going to be different than in Kansas or South Dakota or something like that. So I think in those plain states, there's a high chance that on the daily, a buck is moving 2 miles.
Yeah, and it's probably deer density matters a whole lot too.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking at in plain states. Like the deer density is really low, but there's pockets of deer that have a really high density, but they measure that stuff by acre or by square mile. So like in places like Iowa, you might have a buck that he doesn't leave this one woodlot. He might spend 40 acres, might be all the time he spends, in a day or whatever. So it's very dependent on that stuff.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
What are y'all packing in your packs for a hunt?
This is a good question. So, in your packs, water, and I'm carrying less water than I used to. That's something I'm learning about deer hunting. If I'm going to be close to the truck, Michael and I talked about this week, you don't drink a lot of water when it's cold. You probably need to, but it's hard to drink a lot of water. I mean, you just don't do it. Some type of a snack. We got some of those Honey Stinger waffles in the mail the other day that are bad to the bone. Not sponsored, but man alive, they're good.
They are. They are.
And then, beyond that, it's kind of gear, right? Camo stuff, warm stuff. It's hard to tell you what to pack, like layer-wise, because everybody's a little bit different, but I always try to pack one more layer of stuff that I might not need. So like an extra puffy. And I always try to bring an extra pair of wool socks. And calls. Tyler, what else do you think about?
I usually carry a screw in, so it depends on, it's just in my bag all year. It depends on if you can use it or not, like where you're hunting. So if I'm hunting private, pretty much guaranteed that I can use it. If you're hunting public, then it just depends on the state or the area or even the managing biologist of the WMA or whatever that might be. So you just got to kind of learn to be a lawyer if you're traveling a bunch, I guess, to deer hunt. But there also is, Tethered sent us this bow hanger that folds out. It's pretty handy. I had rubber wire, so that's another thing I carry, and I wrapped it around a tree the other day and hung that bow hanger on it, and my bow hung just perfect on it, dude. It was cool. Nice.
Yep. I use a Hero clip. I don't know if y'all know what those are. I use that. I like it pretty good for my bow hanger. Carry it with me.
I also carry about a 10-foot thing of paracord that's got a loop and a D-clip or carabiner that is attached to that loop. And basically that's my bag hanger usually. So I just tie it into that loop with the loose end and then have the D-clip and hang my bag on the tree so that I don't have to, in case I'm on public land and can't screw something into the tree, then I use that as my public land bag hanger. I have a pull rope always. Usually, I used to carry it in cargo pants, like in my cargo pockets on my pants, but some of the newer First Light pants we've been wearing don't have a whole lot of cargo space, so now I'm just kind of carrying it in my bag and put it in my pocket.
You don't use the one on the bag?
No.
You don't like it?
No. I just had one that had a clip on it already, so no point in messing with that.
No, that's fine. It's kind of, I do use the one on the bag. I just kind of wondered if there's a reason that it's like, what have you found? Because there's a thing that we do where it's like, Okay, why aren't you doing that? Did you find a better system, or why is that? Is it noisy, or what?
Yeah. I carry 2 headlamps and extra batteries as well for those headlamps, because if you have one light and it goes out, you are toast in the woods. I mean, if you're trying to walk out in the dark, you're going to have a heck of a time unless it's a bright moon. So
I do a weird thing where about every couple weeks, I'll grab like 4 or 5 paper towels and kind of roll them up and throw them in my backpack. And sometimes they end up with like 3 or 4 of these in there. But sooner or later, I end up with none of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's like a good practice to not only have the adequate bathroom necessities, but maybe just a little more.
That's what I was fixing to get to is toilet paper. I always have a roll in my back seat of my truck, always. And so if I am going out one morning, I'm like, well, this might not be a good morning. I make sure I've got it. But I almost always, especially after I've hunted a couple of times and I'm kind of in the method of getting out there and doing it over and over again, I've almost always got it in either a cargo pocket or in my backpack.
Do you still carry hot hands? You used to use hot hands a lot.
No, I don't carry them anymore. I've got them just in case, but I mean, unless it gets cold, I normally don't carry them. And then the rubber wire, like I said, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I kind of use. That's probably about it. Saddle platform, sticks.
I carry a roll of athletic tape, and you ended up using it one year in Colorado.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
Yeah, I was leaning on a branch that broke, and my hand was leaning on it for whatever reason, and when it broke off, my meat of my thumb went right in my broadhead and poked a nice hole, and that was the only all day sit I did that whole year, and so I just sat. That was in the dark in the morning, so I sat there the whole day with just a hole in my hand and athletic tape over it.
That's rough.
Yep.
So, is that good on pack stuff?
I think that's probably
There's
all.
some things like a saw sometimes.
Yeah.
It might be in my pack, depending on the situation. I usually keep my rattle antlers in my pack as opposed to on in your pack. If you didn't know,
That's the one thing I struggle with.
Tyler puts his on the outside of his pack, and in the most
I
recent
didn't last time I used them.
Big Buck video, on the way out they were.
Well, because we just threw stuff. Like we're getting out of there. But
I was trying to give the video a plug, so I'm trying to get.
Yeah. Good.
So there's
It
a
needs
certain
help. Nobody cares about Texas public land deer.
Tyler killed the biggest deer you're ever going to see in your life on Texas public land, and there's a pretty comical time when the antlers go flying,
dude.
and you're going to have to watch and comment when you see it. It's pretty good.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah,
But I carried them on the inside the other day.
yeah. They make
Maybe that was why. I don't know.
they. If you have the right set of antlers, they fit in a pack pretty good. They kind of stack on top of one
Man,
another.
mine are like, I don't know. I guess mine are wrong, but they're very like,
Yeah,
they're not like
yours
flat.
curvy
They're
and real
They're
hard.
curved, yeah. And I don't know that maybe that's not the way.
Okay, so that's pretty good pack talk. Last week, before we get to this,
a knife. You got to have a knife.
Yeah, which I'm bad about. I usually end up using my pocket knife to clean stuff.
Yeah.
But last week we had a question. What is your favorite stick? Your favorite tree stick? Do you have that today to follow up
I think
or
it's
not?
still on here, yeah.
Okay.
Favorite climbing sticks? Yeah.
Okay, do you want to do that now or do you want to wait till we get to it?
There's one more little question about packs. someone
Okay, let's
had.
go. We'll get to it. I just want to make sure it's there.
It's simple. What are the First Light packs you're running?
Those are called transfer packs. They're pretty legit. They're not like backcountry packs, so they're not going to be like that level of durability, but at the same time, they fit you really well, and they have a lot of little pockets, and they hold a lot because they're built more like a square shape, if that makes sense, instead of a teardrop. So there's a lot of capacity at the top for more stuff. And they have a lot of buckles and things to like attach sticks, platforms, all the stuff.
All right, favorite climbing sticks.
Tyler, have you got to use?
I did. I can't say that they're my favorite because I've only used them one time. But they were pretty awesome.
I've used
Eric
them a
made
bunch.
a real loud noise with them.
I did.
So
I forgot about that.
The sticks we're referring to are the tethered one sticks, and they are like as far as attachment system goes, absolutely the best I've ever used. They're awesome. Michael doesn't know how to take them off the tree.
That's how good they are on the tree.
That's right. But if you just reach up and grab the tag in and pull it hard, they'll come right off. So the attachment system on those is the baddest thing. They're the lightest stick I've ever felt, and they grab really good. There's like a big problem, and that's how loud they are because they're hollow, so they donk real easy. If you're careful, it's fine. I'll probably mess with mine a little bit, maybe try to put some foam in them or something. But
I feel like, does that defeat the purpose when you start adding weight?
Maybe, but that foam's super light.
Well, so. I know, but Timber Ninja makes a light stick that's not quite as loud.
I don't like them near as much. I don't think. I think I like those. I think I like those one stick significantly better. But it might be because I always use the 8er on the Timber Ninjas, and I hate 8ers.
Oh, I would. Yeah, I try not to use that 8er as much as possible.
We use it all the time.
I use it probably 30% of the time, but if I can get away with not using it, like if I'm hanging below 16 foot, I'm not going to use that thing.
Yeah.
But I like the Timber Ninjas a lot because I think they're longer than the one stick.
They are.
And carbon is not the quietest thing, but it's quieter than the ear-piercing metal sound of, metal products, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. You just got to, with either one of them, you just got to make sure not hit your release on them or something,
Yeah.
I do like the way, I would say this, because those are probably two of my favorite sticks that I've been carrying the last couple of years. I like the way that the one sticks nest. They don't fall apart.
No.
The Timber Ninjas can fall apart, but they're also harder to nest.
They're real hard to get together.
And they're hard to get apart without just knuckle breaking, dude.
Well, I kind of figured out the system, and because I've used them a lot more than you did. So you just take the one that you want, and you put you like get above it. You put your palms on the step, and you just push down with your thumbs on the ones behind it. And it comes out real easy.
Okay.
But it took me a couple uses to figure that out. So
yeah,
I
still, if they can make the muddies lighter, I still think I would like them better.
But that's still, Muddy doesn't care about getting precise. They don't. They do volume.
They do.
So, but for a mass-produced stick that's like a quarter of the cost, hard to beat.
They're awesome.
We got all those ones we just told you about for free, just so you know. Just so you know that we didn't pay for them, and it makes a big difference on what you can say and do, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I would say right now, for sure, though, I
love the way they stick on a tree, dude.
Yeah.
They just are rock solid.
They also...
And I like the Amsteel so much better.
See, I've been using Amsteel, so I
it
love
makes a huge difference to me this year.
Real good. I bet it does.
I am tired of the sponginess.
I thought that the little glow-in-the-dark shiny things were dumb, and then I used them.
I know.
And I was like, that's cool.
When you kind of make fun of them when you first saw them, I was like, man, I don't feel like it's that funny of a thing.
I had a couple of them fall off, though.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So,
that ain't cool.
But there's still some there, so it's whatever.
Yeah. Just wait.
Yeah. Just wait till I just donk them up a tree a few times. I don't know if y'all know this, but I am a professional gear tester. I will break things.
If somebody needs something broken, send it to
Holler at me.
When do you start hunting over scrapes, and when do you stop?
I mean, as soon as scrapes open up, it's a good time to hunt them. And we've seen scrapes on Texas public land open up in September before. Mm-hmm. And I've killed a deer almost in January over a scrape after he worked the scrape.
I killed a deer on December 30th. That same situation.
Yeah, that's right. Used a scrape. I think what you don't see in December, there's not a whole lot of working the ground part of the scrape a lot of times. They sometimes will, but like more than anything, if a scrape has been there, then they're going to come through and just see it's just a curiosity thing. They're going to lick that branch and smell it with their, nostrils and see what preorbitals are on there and whatever else. And see who's in the area, who's been by it, whatever. It's just a curiosity. It's like, why do old men go to the cafe and have eggs that, their wife could have cooked at home?
Yeah,
it's just to talk to people and see what's going on around town, man.
When I was a kid, I used to take the Tink 69 and put it on the licking branch.
Yeah.
I bet they were like, how did she do that?
Upside down, dude.
That's right. I think it's exactly right. And maybe to add a little strategy or thought around scrapes is there is this roller coaster effect where scrapes go from non-existent to really good, and then you kind of peek over the roller coaster, but it goes down real slow. So like it ramps up real fast, and then like I don't know, from about. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, it's a good time to hunt them. And then through the end of deer season, most likely, if it's somewhat active on trail, that makes the difference too.
Yeah,
you don't hunt a scrape that's just a random scrape. You hunt a scrape near a trail, and you're going to have a good hunt.
Yeah, I would say also a trail scrape late in the year is going to perform for you way better than even a field edge scrape a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
7 days to hunt public land. Should I look for buck beds the first day or sit over a good area overlooking food?
Option B.
Yeah, man, I would not mess with those buck beds.
I mean, you can figure out that stuff, but you got to figure out where the deer are first. I mean, if you can see the deer, if you can hang some trail cameras, you can find deer like bucks at night going to a food source, right? If you can watch them, that'd be great, even better. If you can watch does even go into a food source, then you know the bucks are probably going to be around too. And we're talking about rut here, so definitely going to see bucks around. And I don't know, that's weird, wouldn't it? And so I would do that instead of being like, oh, I'm going to try to bomb in and find buck beds. I mean, you can make assumptions. Once you see deer, you can make assumptions on where the bucks are bedding. Pretty easy, I think, if you practice it a little bit, and then you don't have to go in and risk messing them up.
That's it, man. I never want to intentionally bump a deer unless we're like doing like a bump and dump or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just you're better off if they don't know you're there. That's just all there is to it. So going in there and messing up their bed is just not something I'm into.
Dude, I think people when they bump and dump, I think most of the time it's just like, oh, I messed that up. Let's see if we can make it work. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that are like, I'm going into bump and dump.
Well, when I say bump and dump, I don't even mean it the way I think people do. I mean it like a bump where, hey, go win this and we'll see what comes out the other end. I would love to see more about how someone intentionally bumps a deer out of his bed and then hangs there and kills the same deer. I would love to see that on video. I don't know if it happens often.
It's hard. There's a lot of power in editing. So I kind of wonder. I mean, you can make it look. If 2 days
I'm not going to watch a continuous clip of it, though.
No, that's what I'm saying, right? Because it's 2 days in a row of the same weather could make a bump and dump sound like it happened in 30 minutes.
Still
you know
works.
What I mean?
Still works as a bump and dump. But,
I mean,
I think that, like you were saying, you can make assumptions and go in there and hang early in the morning in the general area you think a buck is bedding. And you don't have to know where his bed is. You shoot him before he lays down anyways. You know? So, like, you don't have to find the specific bed. But if you could, like, observe, figure out the kind of stuff that deer are bedding in, find you some of that on the map, and go in early, hang on a sketchy wind, but good, you can kill a deer.
I killed a buck. You could call it from buck bedding. In South Dakota.
Me too.
And
last year.
Yeah. And the deer, I don't know where exactly. I have a decent idea within maybe, I don't know, like you could draw probably 50-yard square. And I would say that's where his bed was for that day. But the next day we went in and hung in a tree 200 yards from there or more. So, like, I don't know where he bedded that day. I don't know if he bedded in the same place. I can tell you his friend didn't bed in the same place because I saw him earlier in the day, and he came from a completely different direction. So that's the thing about buck bedding is, like, even in South Dakota, even in a place up north where deer do very habitual things, and in a time of year when they're doing habitual things, and I kill a deer on a habitual pattern, still doubt that either one of those, I know one of them, and the one that I killed, I doubt he bedded in the exact same bed. So,
man, that is a rarity, I think. I think that, we can just be frank. The hunting public made it very popular, along with Dan Infault, to go find specific buck beds, and I think it works in some of their situations. But around the country, most of the ground I hunt, deer are not using a wind-specific individual bed.
Yeah.
They have like 10 they can use.
Yeah. But those, it certainly can work on a deer-to-deer basis and in a certain area. And I would just clarify probably that neither one of us are saying that they are making stuff up.
No,
You know
that's
what I mean?
not. Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to say it. Like, it works where they are doing their thing. If you are in, I don't know where this guy's at, but if you're in Georgia, I probably wouldn't be focusing on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Put some corn out.
I don't know if they can bait on public.
Hunt
near a private corn feeder on public.
Do you hunt signpost rubs? If so, what time of the year?
I can't think of a time I've hunted rubs as like the main character.
Man, it's just a good sign to see.
It's cool.
We hunted one, but here's the problem: they correlate with other deer sign too.
Yeah, that's right.
And the reason they're signpost rubs is because deer go by there a lot. Mm-hmm. So you're hunting a trail. I did it in South Dakota this time. I had 3 signpost rubs within shooting distance of me, but I also had a scrape at 15 yards and a scrape at 80 yards that a shooter hit at last light. So, yeah, I would hunt him, but I wouldn't hunt him thinking like, oh, I'm going to shoot him when he's rubbing that.
Yeah.
It's a really good sign to see.
I would be more interested in I think a signpost rub could often be something that gets worked at night too, honestly. A lot of the signpost rubs I've seen are close to roads, and not necessarily this one, but I'm just saying that's what I've seen a lot. So, because they have time to work on them, they're not moving, they're trying to get somewhere. Sometimes they're just in the middle of the dark doing their thing. But I think that I'd be more interested in what trails are leading to that, and can I kill that deer there in daylight? If I can't, then I need to move down the trail and forget that the signpost rub is there. Just know that the deer big bucks probably are using this thing, this trail.
How often do you call or rattle?
The other morning, we rattled every 20 minutes, and I rattled a buck in that if I was Michael, I would have shot it, but it wouldn't have been legal. It was so close to being legal, but it wasn't.
I think that you can pick specific days to rattle, especially mornings. I think rattling works better in mornings, personally. I don't really know why it seems that way.
I rattle more in mornings, too.
Yeah. It's also got the whole thing of like, it's only getting worse from here, so I might as well.
That's exactly why I was going to say that. I didn't want to, diss your favorite time to hunt, though.
I love to hunt the mornings, but there is a time whenever things pivot, and it's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it makes sense as a deer hunter if you want to take a step back and say, well, if I rattle at 9:30, I'm not really messing anything up any worse than it was. Whereas if you're hunting in the evening and you rattle 30 minutes before dark, like, golly, you might spook a doe.
Yeah.
Or something that was going to be the one to bring the deer over.
Especially if you're hunting corn.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. I've been in situations where every 10 minutes worked. Greg and I last year on Texas Public, we were rattling every 10 minutes, rattle a buck in every time for like seven rattling sequences.
Did I know about this?
Yes. Yeah. We were rattling every 10 minutes. And, I mean, we're talking, if you count forkies and stuff.
I did know about this.
We rattled a buck in every time for like 7 sequences. It was insane.
Dude.
I think one of them might have been legal, and he smelled us. So that's another thing you run into is like if you rattle a lot, they're liable to be like, I'm going to smell what that is.
I'd say also like I had a pretty good idea where I was rattling the other morning of what deer would be doing. A pretty decent idea. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like there was one direction that I could have gotten smelled from that deer would come from, and then another direction that was really good direction for me, and it ended up that's where the deer came from. And I felt more confident that bucks would be over there. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the areas, I felt like if the other areas that I could have been smelled from was just like flat, open hardwood stuff that I didn't think anything would be coming from. Yeah. So I felt pretty good about it. So I guess it just kind of depends on where you're at.
We didn't touch the calling stuff too much. I don't grunt blind very often. I have done it a little bit. I still will if I'm like feeling something. But that changes when I see a deer. And y'all all know me in here, but like if I see a deer, I'm very willing to make a grunt call at that deer. I have a lot of confidence in grunts, and I actually just killed a deer, grunting him in a couple days ago.
Grunt?
Sorry.
Nah.
Really?
Wait.
A grunt tube, huh?
Yeah, grunt tube for sure.
Bat.
Yeah. I don't like my mouth grunt very much. Bat. It's kind of high pitched. Sound like a 2-year-old.
Bat.
Should I still hunt food on private during the rut or move off?
Oh,
dude, I'm hunting the best place to kill a big deer.
Is it good food? And I would hunt it evenings probably. I mean, you could hunt food in the morning if you wanted to, but you're still going to be safer in the evening probably because you got wind and stuff too. But, yeah, man, it's always good to hunt food. Everything eats every day.
Yeah. I mean, if you can kill a deer there in the daylight that you want to kill, I would love to hunt some food, actually. Just give clear shooting lanes and all kinds of stuff, man.
You know, I referenced to Jake earlier, but him and I talked about some stuff this week, so I'm thinking about our conversation a little bit. And he talked about how it's a good time of the year to hunt near the food, but maybe be in the thicket right beside the food. And I think that might be something to think about as well. But, dude, around food's a good place to be.
How do you determine what area to hunt within a new state?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. I look at, it depends on if you're going to be able to get private access or not, but let's just assume public, or I will, for my stuff, because that's what I'm usually doing when I'm going out of state. And I just look at areas that have, like, a good radius of public land around. And then I look for the type of habitat that I might want to hunt them in. And then I look at whatever resource I can find for where there might be big deer, whether that's private landowners or ranches around there, or maybe social media, maybe the WMA posts things on Facebook, which I wish they wouldn't. And, yeah, that's probably how I determine it. And then I look at the time of year that I'm going to go hunt there and kind of determine where I'm going to be, because I'm not going to go hunt Louisiana in October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to kind of set your goals. Like, are you trying to shoot the biggest deer you can, the biggest deer of your life, or are you trying to shoot a nice buck, or are you trying to just go shoot anything? Are you trying to have a hunt where you see a lot of deer, or are you okay with not seeing very many deer and shooting potentially a big one? So you kind of put all those factors in, and then that plays into what, along with time of year, plays into where you would end up, right? Because if I'm hunting in September, October, I'm probably not going to hunt somewhere that doesn't have any ag food sources around. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and then if I'm going to hunt, if I'm going to hunt the rut, then I'm probably going to hunt an area that has mondos, because it's the one time of year that they'll end up on public, even if they've been on private all year. So that's kind
catch
of
them
my
slipping.
thoughts. Yeah, that way you give them the slip.
Slip it in the rib.
Woo!
Shoot at the scrape or downwind a little bit?
Shoot?
Yeah, if there's a scrape, do you shoot at the scrape or hunt downwind of it?
Oh, I see what they're saying. Like, do you set up to take the shot at the scrape?
Shoot, I like to be at the scrape, because a lot of times the scrape will have multiple trails coming into it.
Yeah. You just got to be real careful with the wind.
Yeah.
Which you have a real good experience about this stuff. Illinois from a couple years back. So what was the setup like on that?
We had, because of a camera, we had a pretty good idea where the deer was bedding generally. Had a wind shift, so that was important. The wind shift, the deer go to bedding on a particular wind, and the wind shifts in the evening as I'm going in. So when the deer gets up, it's not super advantageous to him. But he still had like a 90-degree wind coming in on the trail that he came in on. I didn't even shoot him at the scrape, but I had a little buck come in and work the scrape. And what I like about shooting a scrape, too, is that their head, you can shoot them when their head is up. And they're like in a very hard, it's going to be very hard for them to jump the string when their head is up in a licking branch.
Dude, I feel like they are very relaxed in that situation.
Yeah.
I've never shot one like that, but I'd like to.
Yeah, mine was not like that, but that's kind of what I would. I hadn't shot one ever like that at all either. So I would like to. I just have always thought, man, that would be the time to shoot one. He would not jump your string.
Would you hold off on a longer / riskier shot if it's raining?
Raining.
Send it.
I tend to shoot.
I mean, you shoot high, right?
I don't know.
Rain's going to knock it down.
I don't know, man. I don't know about that. It probably depends on the amount of rain. If it's a mist, I ain't even thinking about it. Yeah, that's exactly right. If it's misty, I ain't even thinking about that.
Are heat waves good or bad for hunting?
Oh, so it means like
Mirage.
No, we were just talking about Mirage earlier, and I got confused. I'd say bad.
Oh,
general
yeah,
bad.
for sure.
Yeah, like I mean, you could go Tony Peterson and
Yeah.
figure out a reason what to make it good, and that's good to be optimistic. But no, overall bad.
Yeah, I mean, if so, the South Dakota buck that I referred to earlier, it was a hotter day the next day that I hunted him than the day before when I'd seen him, and he came out just slightly later. And it was pretty dark, but I could still see everything. I mean, it was still legal. It just he was out in plenty of legal the day before. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's a correlated thing where you get another 6 or 7 degree bump in temps, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm gonna wait 6 or 7 more minutes, to come out.
There's a scrape line with bucks hitting it at night on camera. When do you start hunting it?
That's a great cold front thing, I think. I think that, I mean, it depends on what time of year. If we're talking about mid-November and they're hitting it at night, there's a chance they aren't ever going to hit it in the daytime. But if it's like early November, which we're kind of already past that, we're right at early November right now. But that's my first impression is like hunt it on the coldest day on a snap, and there's a chance that you...
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of weird. Just the nighttime thing is weird.
I feel like if you only have a few days to hunt here in the second week of November, and there's still a lot of nighttime, and that's kind of your spot, then go hunt it because weird things happen. And, even on a hot day like we saw on our trail camera recently, bucks come out at 10 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if this is all you got, don't be depressed and just don't go hunting and spend your time in the woods. But if you got other options, then you might wait until they get real close to daylight or a cold snap, like KC said. I mean, that buck in Illinois that was his first daylight appearance at the scrape too when I shot him, and that was a week after he showed up for the first time, and it was on a cold front.
There's also a chance that those deer are bedding maybe near there, and you could set up, like if you had a direction of travel for those deer, often you could set up close to where you thought that was, and you might be able to rattle one out of his bed or something like that. Mm-hmm. Just thought.
How many bags of corn to get a 150-inch deer?
I love it. Right now, a lot.
I guarantee you.
I don't know if we got one.
Yeah, I guarantee you it's a lot. It depends on where you're at, man. If you're in Webb County, Texas, it might just take one bag of corn. Mm-hmm. It's funny. Yeah, I guess if you're talking about growing one over the course of its life, it's really a lot of corn.
Yeah, a lot of corn. Corn ain't a lot of protein in corn, so it doesn't really feed the antlers.
Keep them warm in the winter.
I will say that dumping one bag ain't enough. 4 bags minimum. Because they will demolish it. They'll eat the sticks, they'll eat the dirt, they'll eat it all.
You mean standing corn?
Do you see bucks bedding in thick timber or switchgrass like habitat more often?
Depends on the time of year. Switchgrass, deer just won't bed in switchgrass very often until it gets pretty cold, I think. It's just typically too sunny out there for them. Have you ever walked through a switchgrass field in the summer?
It's difficult.
It's the worst, most muggy, nasty, humid, hot thing you've ever done in your life, So I think switchgrass is awesome about right now. Mm-hmm. Once the cold weather hits in this second week in November, KC is talking. I'm not going to even mention him because we've mentioned him so many times. But Jake, we were talking to him earlier, and he was kind of asking a similar question about a property. And you made a good point that a lot of times a buck will take a doe and pin her out in a CRP switchgrass habitat, kind of away from the timber where there aren't bucks cruising through, and she may or may not get smelled by other bucks, so that he doesn't have to worry with other bucks coming in and messing with them. And so this time of year, the switchgrass could be awesome for sure, but they're everywhere this time of year,
That happened in Colorado last year, remember?
They pinned her out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Pinnifer?
Yeah, they like to take them to weird places.
Have you guys had success hunting small pieces of woods near bean or cornfields?
Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I have some for sure. I mean, my Illinois buck from last year was like just a little bitty strip of woods near a marsh.
Yeah.
And there he was.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is a rut podcast. I don't know.
I mean, if it's a funnel,
Yeah.
between two big blocks of
But
timber.
I wouldn't just go out there and hunt a woodlot this time of year. Just like a little 10-acre piece of woods
I've
that has
thought about
ag
it.
all around it. I thought about it too.
Like
but
shelter
I'd
belts
I'd
or
have to
whatever.
have like a little bit of info.
Oh, for sure. That's what I'm saying is I've
Yeah.
thought about it a lot, but I've never done it because it's just hard to go sit in a old homestead woodlot that's tiny, just hoping that deer pins one out there or something. They were
Yeah.
bedded there that day.
Yeah.
Saddle versus climber. Climber seems faster and quieter. What are the benefits of a saddle?
You can hang in any tree. I think that's
Yep.
the main difference in those two things. I mean, where we live, a climber is very difficult to use. But where Michael's from, or some of the areas, up in the more northern country, you
Or
have straight
southeast.
trees. Yeah.
Pine country.
Pine country.
Louisiana all the way out to
But-
Georgia.
I would argue that climbers aren't as quiet as maybe
Yeah.
that person makes them out to be.
I would also argue that you can probably get more shots out of a saddle than a climber.
What are you looking for when considering an all-day sit? I'm assuming tree and where they're hunting.
I do this thing on these podcasts because I'm very bad about just speaking, where I'm like, all right, this next one I'm going to let Tyler answer first. And the last two times that I've like, made the effort, it's like answers that Tyler doesn't. He's like, I ain't doing that.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
What are you looking for when considering an all-day sit?
I've never considered an all-day sit. I've considered an all-day sit about 3 times in my life, and it was the worst 3
Because I
days.
talked him into it.
It was like, yeah, it was because K.C. talked me into it, and it was very similar to sleeping in a windowsill in a hospital when my kids were born. It's I think I would consider being in some sort of a area that I feel confident that deer would be moving through, checking for does, wherever that is. And a lot of times people think of pinches or funnels or whatever, but it could be in a brushy little spot on the edge of a field where does typically bed and will eat. So if it's cold on the edge of an ag field, a lot of times there's does out there all day. So like late November, it's getting cold, and the does need a lot of food that time of day or that time of year. You could sit near that, on the downwind side of that stuff. That could be a place that you would consider sitting all day potentially because you might bust does going in and out or whatever. Also, if your access is tough or it's a long ways in, that's another way that would consider hunting all day.
See, that's where the discrepancy gets. Does that mean the same thing as all day sit? Because Michael hunted all day twice this past week, but we didn't sit in the same place.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that most people think of it as not hanging in a different tree, but
Same place. Yeah.
dude, I have got to go to a different tree at least. I think the last time I sat all day, I moved like 100 yards.
It has to be hot rut. And I don't mean hot like temperature. I mean like good hunting to feel like if you didn't kill one that morning, that you'll kill one in the same tree in that evening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because if it's not, you're kind of depending on bed to feed type patterns. And if they didn't come by that morning, there's a good chance they're coming back by
I'm
that
telling
evening.
you, I hate it, dude.
Yeah, so-
last holiday sit I sat, I sat there all day in the same area, 100 yards from the other place. I could see pretty much the same stuff. And I saw deer during prime time in the morning and during prime time in the evening.
Yep.
That was it.
I would tell
It's
you.
like, I decided, nope, not doing that again.
You can hunt Johnson Farm all day.
Yeah.
And have pretty good hunt.
There's
It's just-
places.
There's just some spots, especially whenever you get like good habitat mixed with a funnel that butts up against no man's land. Like you can have pretty good hunts. And
I guess these people have better properties than I do,
they
maybe.
might. And here's the other thing too, though, is that wind is a huge consideration on all day sits. You got to have a consistent, heavy wind to sit all day. Otherwise, you are smelling some stuff up. If your wind is blowing, like if you have a wind switch in the day, or it's like 5 to 8, dude, I just feel like I'm stinking some stuff up bad. But if you got 15 out of the north, and all your deer are like moving northeast to northwest, like I feel pretty good about that.
Where do you see the most bedding, doe and buck, taking place in river bottom land?
That's a
Dry ground.
Yeah.
That would be my
good
best answer. Like maybe some of the higher, drier stuff will also grow more thicket too. So you'll have that. I'm trying to think about like we hunt rivers here. We hunt rivers some other places. It's usually like big laydowns too. You'll get some of that stuff.
Yep.
There'll be some deer bedding around that stuff, but
especially if it's like floodplain. If it's floodplain, then those laydowns are important. If
that means like a dead tree. If you don't know what that means, it's a dead tree, big log.
But like again, what you said with like if it's in floodplain country, then the stuff that's just a little bit higher is like it's better. Typically it grows greenbrier and switchgrasses and whatever else.
Look for the
cattails.
thickest non-monoculture that you can find, because like I can remember being a young man and seeing like cane thickets and be like, "Oh, them deer bedding that," and now I'm like, "I don't go in there," because it's just a thick, nasty mess that offers them nothing. Whereas like if you find a bunch of briars and switchgrass and some brushy trees with some shade, like that's the good stuff there for sure.
Yeah.
Do you aim low to anticipate a buck ducking to run? If so, where are you aiming?
Tyler's the man on this one.
I like to aim low most of the time. Let's see. So like recently shot a buck on Texas public land, and you can see in that video how much that deer moves. It's 28-yard shot, which is pretty duckable. And he probably moves 4 inches or so, being super relaxed with other deer around. The Nameless was one of the first like real awesome videos we ever put out together as the Element. And Nameless at 23 yards, full relaxed rut cruise, no grunt stop at 23 yards, moves probably 3 inches by the time the arrow gets there. With a fast arrow too, like a lighter arrow. So I think most deer, and this is different in different areas. In Nebraska, my buck at 35 didn't move at all. So I think most deer are going to jump the string if it's semi-quiet, and if they've been hunted some. I think if they haven't been hunted a lot, that's one thing. And then also if they think you are a deer, then they might not jump the string. And we've seen that if you watch Kansas buck truck from last year, your deer flinches but doesn't jump the string because he thought you were a deer. We haven't put this out, but in Oklahoma last year, I shot at a buck at 48 that thought I was a deer because I did what you did in Kansas, and I snort wheezed when I drew back. Thought I was a deer, flinch, but no jump. And even recently, you had one that flinched and didn't jump.
Just a little
thought
flinch.
y'all are a deer.
Yep.
So I think that those are, and how, like, all this has to be processed very quickly, right? So even though I think about it a lot, we still mess it up from time to time.
I tend to not aim as low as Tyler does. And it's almost like we're like 12 one, half dozen the other, as they say, or 10 one. What was the what was the joke?
It was 10 or
it's
something.
10 one,
wasn't it?
half dozen the other.
Yeah.
But means 6 1, half dozen the other. Anyways, I don't aim as low, and I have lost more deer high. You aim lower and have lost. If you tend to lose a deer, it's because you hit low. So
I lost, I missed a deer low in Arkansas last year and one Oklahoma deer. I think that's it.
Nebraska
deer
this year,
Yeah.
But so it's every archery shot is a guess, and you just have to get better at guessing what you should do.
I think, man, it depends. But like if you're hunting, the majority of the deer in the U.S. are skittish, right? Not all. Like it would be blessed to hunt deer that aren't skittish.
Dude, I watched this
And
guy
so-
shoot a 350-pound deer in Maine here a while back. That deer didn't move at all
Yeah.
whenever he shot. It was awesome.
I remember watching Midwest Whitetail a long time ago, and this dude was hunting like a 230, and it was like a 9-year-old buck, and it didn't flinch at all. And he shot low for it, and it did not move.
Yeah.
And he barely clipped it, and I think it died of infection or something. But anyway, I think from 20 to 40, you know, basically trying to hit the heart is probably not a bad idea. You know, instead, and it's you can mess that up. You know, because you especially from a tree stand, you don't realize how low the heart is actually sitting in that body that you're aiming at.
Yep.
Do small bucks only rub small trees?
No.
No, but I think oftentimes they do. I mean, I don't think if their antlers can't get around it. I mean, how small are we talking? I guess.
I think a whippet's when I'm thinking of this.
Oh,
So I think that more often than not, if you see a little whip, it's a little buck.
yeah.
But every once in a while, it's not. Sometimes the big bucks get mad at them. But I
It's like they would break them off, though.
maybe.
Maybe not.
But
Some of them oak trees are pretty flimsy.
yeah. But I think that there's a better chance that a small deer, if you find a small rub, better chance it's a small deer. If you find a big rub, it was probably made by a big deer, but a small deer is using it too.
Yeah. Big rubs typically just have more deer using them, probably. Yeah.
Do deer still make scrapes in thick vegetative areas?
Yes. I mean, the Illinois scraper is in a thick spot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vegetation around there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, for sure.
What release are you using?
I'm
I have
using a single hook.
Yeah, I got a hook style release too. It's like a wrist strap.
What snacks go in your pack?
Oh, I already said mine a moment ago.
Shoot. I've been making dehydrated bananas, and they're not like the ones you buy in the store that are crispy and nasty. Tastes like a piece of cardboard. They're like kind of still have some moisture in them. Man, they
like
are
banana leather.
so good. It's like, it's like
They're good.
it's just straight sugar, dude. So good.
I ate an apple a few times on this trip, and it was pretty nice.
Yeah, apples are a good snack,
pretty
man.
good.
How high off the ground do you hunt? Is cover more important than height?
Yes, for sure. They are inverse. So, like, if you ain't got no cover, you better get higher.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
We hunted 8 foot off the ground the other day
We
and had a
hunted 8
buck
foot.
at 3 yards
Yeah, it's
in
scary.
Texas Public.
We hunted like where we could touch our platforms here a while back, and we had a doe at like 7 yards. Yeah, I like it.
Do you grunt with rattling during the rut?
If it's a blind thing, a lot of times I'll do some grunts before I hit the antlers together.
I don't typically grunt if I'm going to rattle.
This person says they're leaving for a week. Anything I should do or bring that can easily be forgotten?
License, wallet.
Knife, chapstick, sunglasses,
Gloves,
gloves.
the things, headlamp, the things that you don't use
Daily.
all day.
Yeah.
The things you use like morning or when it's cold, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it might not be cold enough to need a toboggan or a beanie, whatever you call it.
Cash would be good.
Yeah.
It's always good if somebody gives you a lift or something like that. Throw them a, $5 bill or something.
Thoughts on ground blind versus tree stand during the rut?
Just depends on where you're at. I mean, I'm wishing we had a ground blind in Kansas.
They're gonna be just blind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. I'm hoping they're blind.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna take.
I would rather be in a tree stand right now in my life. I love hunting out of a tree, and I love being about 12 to 14 foot high and just like in a scary tree. I love it so much, dude.
I like that you can see from a tree. That's like a huge part of it. And since I like to grunt and call deer so much, it just helps me able to see them. But I have sat in some holes. Eric, you probably remember that time all in Wasper on that log in Kansas. We were hunting right.
Yeah.
Yeah. then we had deer come real close, but you didn't know they were there until they were right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
All right. We're at an hour, so last question probably.
Okay, sounds good.
What are the earliest and latest rut regions in Texas?
Oh, I like this question. I know the earliest because I used to live there. It's down along the upper coast of Texas, which is the furthest east on the coast that you can go. And I believe peak breeding dates are like September 28th in that area. And then
Never will I hunt that rut.
no, hardly anybody will. Latest, I don't know for sure. I'm sure it's like some South
Probably,
Texas deal.
Trans-Pecos stuff.
Is it?
I don't know. I'm just wondering, is there a January rut out there?
I don't know. Well, guys.
Yeah.
OnX has a rut map, and I don't use it all that often.
I
But
mean, there's for sure,
worth
like
checking
the
out.
Golden Triangle stuff of South Texas, like Webb County and Dimmitt and whatever is down there. Those are like mid-December. I think people like that, like December 14th to 20th, a lot down there.
let's see. We got down around Corpus. What does this say? Peak rut dates October 31st. Okay, let's try this. This December 24th, that's the Golden Triangle.
Okay.
That's about as late as you're going to get, it looks like. Yeah, December 24th, which is Degum Christmas Eve
Yeah.
is peak breeding date for the stuff down around Laredo. So, pretty cool.
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah. And, of course, it's interesting how these things work because the borders follow highways, which is wild, right? But it's a general idea. But at the same time, the whole state of Texas, the whole South, it would seem, is you are liable to see a buck dogging a doe as long as he's got hard antlers on his head. Because I had, a couple years back, I had a buck run through my backyard that was a mature deer, and he was dogging 6 does, and it was like February 12th or something like that.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird to hunt.
Doesn't do you a lot of good because you can't hunt then.
No. Could in Arkansas, though.
Yeah,
They got a long bow season.
that's right.
So
Recurve
we
too,
still
I
have
think.
like a bunch of questions from
Yeah, we probably have another podcast to do.
Golly, okay. Well, we might try to get that out pretty soon too. We got a lot of hunting to do finally. And then KC also has to tell a story.
Oh, man.
At some point
I'm a
in the next
storyteller.
few podcasts, for the next podcast or so. So those are, I don't know. We're likely to release 3 podcasts this week. Who knows? We're also likely to shoot a couple of deer and not release any podcasts after this. So no, but we're gonna try to get the next rut Q&A stuff put out pretty quick since it is the rut and things are going down. And then on the YouTube front, you can definitely just continue to make sure you're subscribed there because we're going to continue trying to release stuff that's been happening pretty recently. If you haven't yet, watch those 2 Texas public land bucks that we shot recently. There has been another Texas public land buck go down. If you aren't familiar with it, it might be one of the widest deer you've ever seen, and you should look at it on our Instagram feed or Facebook and give a guess at how wide you think it is. So that's kind of the stuff we got going on right now. We're going to check back in with you, let you know another report. Don't forget, if you're interested in what's going on in your neck of the woods, the Rut Fresh Radio is going down on the Wired to Hunt podcast feed as well. You can hear me and KC interview guys from all over the country. We appreciate you guys' support and your subscription here on the podcast. Remember, this is your element.
Living it.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.